The morning on Station Aurora began like every other morning. Children ran through the wide corridors on their way to school. Scientists carried coffee cups to their labs. Families sat together in the cafeteria, eating breakfast and talking about their plans for the day. Nobody knew that in less than 1 hour, most of them would be dead. Station Aurora floated at the edge of the Vega system, far from Earth but full of life. More than 12,000 people lived there. Some were researchers studying alien plants and strange rocks from distant worlds. Others were engineers who kept the station running. Many were just ordinary families who had come to build a new life among the stars. It was the year 2347, and humanity had spread across 17 colony worlds. Station Aurora was one of dozens of outposts that marked the edge of human space. Commander Tejo Park stood in the command center, watching the morning reports on his screen. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. He had served in the border conflicts 20 years ago, and now he spent his days handling small problems on a peaceful station. He thought his fighting days were over. In the Botanical Research Wing, Dr. Una Beck was already at work. She was studying a flower from a world called Kepler 442b. The flower glowed blue in the dark, and she was trying to understand why. Una was a mother of 2. Her children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 10, were in school right now, probably complaining about their math homework. She smiled at the thought. Near the engineering section, a young woman named Hana Choi walked slowly toward her workstation. She was 8 months pregnant, and her back hurt all the time now. Her husband worked on a mining ship and would return in 3 weeks, just in time for the birth. She touched her belly and felt the baby kick. Everything was going to be fine. Lieutenant Minho Kang was the youngest security officer on the station. He was 24 years old and full of hope. He believed that humanity's future in space would be peaceful. He believed that different species could live together without war. He had never killed anyone, and he hoped he never would. At 0847 station time, everything changed. Commander Tejo received a broken message from a mining vessel 3 light hours away. The voice was full of fear. Velric warships. They're everywhere. They came out of nowhere. God help us. Then the message cut off. Tejo's blood went cold. The Velric were an alien empire that controlled 43 star systems. They were proud and aggressive, and they saw humans as insects who had crawled into space without permission. There had been tension for years. But never open attack. Raise the shields, Tejo ordered. Send a distress signal to Earth. Get me. He never finished the sentence. The lights flickered. The station shook. When Tejo looked at the sensor screen, his heart stopped. 15 Velric warships surrounded Aurora. They had come out of hyperspace without warning, and they were already in weapons range. A face appeared on the main screen. It was Highblade Torek, commander of the Velric fleet. His skin was gray and covered with small scales. His eyes were black and empty of mercy. When he spoke, his voice was like stones grinding together. This territory now belongs to the Velric Empire. Resist and die. Lieutenant Minho stepped forward. His voice shook, but he tried to speak calmly. This is a civilian station. We have families here. Children. Surely we can negotiate. Torek smiled. It was not a kind smile. You have nothing we want except your absence. The communication array exploded. One of the Velric ships had fired a precise shot that destroyed Aurora's ability to call for help. Tejo understood then that this was not a capture mission. This was an execution. The assault began. Velric soldiers cut through the station's hull at 12 different points. They wore black armor and carried weapons that fired bolts of burning plasma. They moved through the corridors like death itself, killing everyone they found. They did not ask for surrender. They did not take prisoners. They simply killed. Tejo grabbed a weapon and organized every security officer and armed civilian he could find. They set up defensive positions, trying to protect the civilians who were running toward the escape pods. But there were too few defenders and too many attackers. In the botanical wing, Dr. Una heard the explosions and the screams. Her first thought was of her children. She ran toward the school, but a security officer stopped her. The school is gone, he said. His face was pale. I'm sorry. Una felt something break inside her. But she did not have time to grieve. Around her, dozens of children from other parts of the station were hiding among the plants and flowers. They were crying, calling for their parents. Yuna made a choice. She gathered them together, led them deeper into the botanical wing, and hid them in a storage room behind the alien trees. She told them to be quiet. She told them she would protect them. Hana Choi tried to reach the escape pods. She moved as fast as her pregnant body would allow, holding her belly with both hands. She was so close. She could see the pod doors. Then a Velric soldier stepped into her path. She looked into his black eyes and saw nothing there. No pity, no hesitation. The plasma bolt was quick. Hannah and her unborn child died together, 30 steps from safety. The massacre lasted 4 hours. The Velric were thorough. They went room by room, corridor by corridor. They killed scientists in their labs. They killed children in their hiding places. They killed people who were already wounded and begging for mercy. Lieutenant Minho fought until his weapon ran out of power. Then he fought with his hands. A Velric soldier broke his arm, then his ribs, then his skull. Commander Tejo was captured alive. Torek wanted some humans to survive as examples. As soldiers dragged Tejo away, he managed to reach a hidden console. With bloody fingers, he launched a single emergency beacon into hyperspace. It contained the station's recorded footage of everything that had happened. When the killing stopped, only 847 humans remained alive. They were prisoners now, kneeling on the floor of the main hangar with their hands bound. Around them lay the bodies of their friends, their colleagues, their families. Highblade Torek walked among the survivors, his boots stepping in human blood. He looked pleased. Send a message to the Velric High Council, he told his officers. Tell them the operation was a complete success. Tell them that humans are weak, disorganized, and easily conquered. Tell them that this sector now belongs to the Empire. He looked down at Commander Tejo, who stared back with eyes full of cold hate. Your species is finished, Torek said. You simply do not know it yet. Tejo said nothing, but in his mind, he thought of the beacon flying through hyperspace toward Earth. He thought of what his people would do when they saw what had happened here. The Velric believed they had won a great victory. They believed they had taught humanity its place in the galaxy. They were wrong. They had just made the worst mistake in the history of their species, and somewhere in the cold darkness of space, a small beacon carried the screams of 12,000 humans toward a planet called Earth. The emergency beacon reached Earth 2 weeks after the massacre. It arrived at the United Terran Command headquarters in Seoul on a cold winter morning. The officer who received it was drinking tea when the signal came through. When he saw what it contained, the cup fell from his hands and shattered on the floor. Within 1 hour, every important leader in human space was watching the footage. The recording showed everything. It showed the Velric ships appearing without warning. It showed the soldiers cutting through the hull. It showed people running and screaming. It showed children being shot in the back as they tried to hide. It showed a pregnant woman falling to the ground with her hands still wrapped around her belly. It showed Commander Tejo's final message, recorded with blood dripping down his face. This is Commander Tejo Park of Station Aurora. We are under attack by Velric forces. They are killing everyone. Civilians, children, everyone. If anyone receives this message, please, tell our families we loved them. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them. The recording ended with static. In the main chamber of the United Terran Council, 200 leaders sat in complete silence. Some of them were crying. Some were shaking with rage. Some simply stared at the empty screen with faces like stone. Admiral Yoon Han sat in the front row. She was 63 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen humanity's darkest moments. She had commanded fleets. She had won wars that most people did not even know had been fought. She was considered the most dangerous military mind humanity had ever produced. She watched the footage without expression. Her face showed nothing, but those who knew her well could see her hands gripping the arms of her chair so hard that her knuckles turned white. When the lights came back on, nobody spoke. Nobody knew what to say. Admiral Unji stood up. Her voice was calm and cold, like ice over deep water. Convene the war assembly. The council member beside her leaned forward. Admiral, perhaps we should consider diplomatic options first. The Velric Empire is powerful. War could mean, they killed our children. Unji's voice did not rise, but something in it made everyone stop breathing. They recorded it. They smiled while they did it. There will be no diplomacy. Convene the war assembly. Within days, the footage spread across all of human space. It played on screens in every city, every colony, every station. People gathered in public squares to watch it together. They watched in silence. Then they wept. Then they grew angry. The anger was like nothing humanity had ever felt before. It crossed all borders, all cultures, all political divisions. Suddenly, there were no nations. There were no factions. There was only humanity. And humanity's children had been murdered. Recruitment centers were overwhelmed. People who had never held a weapon demanded to join the military. Scientists offered their skills. Engineers volunteered to work day and night. Factories that made civilian goods began making weapons instead. The entire species turned toward a single purpose: revenge. Director Woojin Lim was the head of Terran Intelligence Services. He was a thin man with glasses and a quiet voice, but his mind held more secrets than anyone alive. He stood before Admiral Unji and presented everything they knew about the Velric Empire. 43 star systems, he said. 600 billion citizens. Their homeworld is Velric Prime, a planet slightly larger than Earth with 3 major continents. Their military consists of approximately 8,000 warships and 20 million soldiers. Admiral Unji studied the data on her screen. And what do they know about us? Woojin allowed himself a small smile. They think we have 300 warships and limited military capability. They believe we are weak, divided, and unwilling to fight far from home. And the truth? The truth is that humanity has been preparing for a war like this for 80 years. Hidden shipyards in 12 systems, 2,000 warships that do not officially exist, weapons that the galaxy has never seen. The Velric attacked us because they thought we were sheep. His smile grew colder. They are about to discover we are wolves. Captain Sujin Yu received her orders 3 days later. She was 41 years old, a career naval officer who had spent her life waiting for a war she hoped would never come. Now it had come, and she had been chosen to command humanity's most terrible weapon. The ship was called the Retribution. It was 3 kilometers long and shaped like a black sword. It had been built in secret, hidden in an asteroid field, never meant to be used except in humanity's darkest hour. Its main weapon was called the Genesis Lance, a device that could focus the energy of a small star into a beam capable of cracking a planet's crust. Sujin stood in the shipyard, looking up at the massive vessel. She felt no pride. She felt only the weight of what she would be asked to do. Sergeant Jinwoo Oh received different orders. He was a Special Forces team leader, a man who had fought in the Kepler uprising and survived things that most soldiers could not imagine. He was hard and quiet and very, very good at killing. His mission was simple: infiltrate Velric Prime, find the survivors of Aurora, and extract them before the main attack began. The Admiral wants them home before we strike. His commander told him. Those people have suffered enough. They should not have to die in what comes next. Jinwoo nodded. He understood. What was coming next would be something the galaxy had never witnessed. Admiral Unji prepared one final message before the war began. She sat alone in her office, looking at a photograph on her desk. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a wide smile. Her granddaughter, 8 years old, the same age as many of the children who died on Aurora. She recorded her message and sent it to the Velric High Council. She wanted them to hear it before the first human ship crossed into their space. Her voice was steady. Her words were simple. Leaders of the Velric Empire. 47 days ago, your forces attacked Station Aurora. They killed 11,553 innocent people. Among them were 2,847 children. Your soldiers recorded the massacre. Your commander celebrated it. You believed this would frighten humanity. You believed we would accept your dominance and bow to your empire. You were wrong. She paused. In the silence, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Humanity does not forgive the murder of its children. We do not forget. We do not negotiate. We do not stop. You wanted to know what humans are capable of. You are about to find out. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you. Because we will not. The transmission ended. Across human space, fleets began to move. 2,000 warships activated their engines and set course for Velric territory. The factories kept building more. The volunteers kept coming. The anger kept burning. Earth's payback had begun. The war was 3 weeks old, and the Velric Empire was learning what fear meant. Human fleets had pushed deep into Velric space with a speed that should have been impossible. 7 Velric worlds had already fallen. Their defense lines crumbled like sand against the tide. Ships that the Velric had never seen before appeared from nowhere, firing weapons that burned through their strongest armor like paper. The Velric High Council met in emergency session every day now. High Blade Torek, the hero who had conquered Station Aurora, kept insisting that victory was near. They are stretching themselves too thin, he said. They will collapse soon. Their rage will burn out. But High Counselor Merrick was not so sure. He studied the reports. He counted the dead. He watched the recordings of human ships fighting with a fury that seemed beyond reason. These were not soldiers fighting for territory or resources. These were parents fighting for murdered children. That kind of enemy did not surrender. That kind of enemy did not stop. We have made a terrible mistake, Merrick whispered to himself, but he did not say it aloud. Not yet. On Velric Prime, the survivors of Aurora were kept in a prison complex beneath the capital city. 847 humans lived in crowded cells, waiting to die. They had been beaten, they had been starved, they had been studied like laboratory animals. But they had not been broken. Commander Tejo Park had been tortured for information about human military strength. He had told them nothing. His body was covered with burns and cuts, but his spirit remained unbroken. Every night, he told the other prisoners the same thing. Earth is coming. Hold on. Earth is coming. Dr. Yuna Bake had been kept alive because the Velric scientists were curious about human biology. They wanted to understand how such a weak species had spread so far across the galaxy. Yuna answered their questions with lies and half-truths, buying time, protecting secrets. But her real purpose was simpler: keeping the children alive. 23 children had survived the massacre. They were the ones Yuna had hidden in the botanical wing, plus a few others who had been captured elsewhere. The Velric did not know what to do with them. They were too young to be useful, too small to be threats, so they let Yuna care for them, not understanding that she was keeping a flame of hope burning in the darkness. Among the Velric guards, there was a young soldier named Keshan. He was different from the others. He did not enjoy causing pain. He asked questions that made his commanders uncomfortable. One night, he brought extra food to the children's cell. Yuna looked at him with suspicion. Why? She asked. Keshan's black eyes showed something that might have been shame. They are children, he said quietly. What we did, what we are doing, it is not honorable. Yuna said nothing, but she remembered his face. 300 light-years away, Sergeant Jin Wuo and his team were preparing for the most dangerous mission of their lives. Their ship was disguised as a captured Velric cargo vessel. They had spent weeks learning Velric codes, Velric patrol patterns, Velric body language. Now they were approaching Velric Prime, the heart of the enemy empire, pretending to be something they were not. Jinwoo's team was small, 12 soldiers, the best humanity had. His second-in-command was Corporal Nari Joan, a demolitions expert with steady hands and a cold smile. She had lost her brother on Aurora. She had volunteered for this mission before anyone asked. Security checkpoint ahead, the pilot announced. They're scanning us. Everyone held their breath. If the disguise failed, they would be dead in seconds. The scanner passed over them. A Velric voice crackled through the communication system. Cargo vessel, you are cleared for atmospheric entry. Proceed to landing zone 7. Jinwoo allowed himself to exhale. They were in. The plan was precise. They would land, move through the city using stolen uniforms and false identities, reach the prison complex, extract the survivors, and escape during a massive distraction. A human fleet attacking the Velric secondary shipyards on the other side of the planet. Everything depended on timing. Everything depended on speed. Everything depended on luck. They reached the prison complex at night. The distraction had begun. Velric defense forces were scrambling to respond to the attack on the shipyards. The prison was lightly guarded. Jinwoo's team moved through the shadows like ghosts. The first guard died without making a sound. Then the second. Then the third. They reached the cell blocks and began cutting through locks with plasma torches. Commander Tejo heard the noise first. He pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain in his broken ribs. When the cell door opened, and he saw human faces, he thought he was dreaming. "Commander Park?" Jinwoo said. "We're here to take you home." Tejo's eyes filled with tears. "I knew you would come. I told them. I told everyone." The extraction moved fast. Prisoners who could walk helped those who could not. Children were carried on soldiers' backs. "Doctor," Yuna gathered her 23 survivors and moved them toward the exit with the calm efficiency of a woman who had kept them alive through hell. But the Velric were not stupid. An alarm sounded. Guards began to converge on their position. Corporal Nari made a decision. She told Jinwoo to keep moving. Then she turned and walked back toward the approaching enemy. "Nari, no." Jinwoo started. "My brother's name was Donghyun," she said. "He was on Aurora. He was 22 years old. Get those children home, Sergeant." She disappeared around a corner. Moments later, there was an explosion that shook the entire complex. The corridor behind them collapsed, buried under tons of rubble. The Velric reinforcements were blocked. Nari did not come back. The survivors reached the shuttle. 112 humans crowded into a space designed for 40. Children sat on laps. The wounded lay on the floor. Commander Tejo, despite his injuries, insisted on carrying a young boy who could not walk. The shuttle rose through the atmosphere. Velric fighters tried to intercept, but human warships appeared from nowhere to cover the escape. As they broke free of the planet's gravity, Jinwoo looked down at Velric Prime through the viewport. It was a beautiful world. Purple oceans, silver cities, billions of lives going about their daily business, unaware of what was coming. A transmission came through from Admiral Unji. "Survivors secured." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Confirmed, Admiral. All surviving prisoners extracted. Good. Clear the system. The retribution arrives in 6 hours." Jinwoo understood. He felt something cold settle in his stomach. Far below, High Counselor Merrick intercepted the transmission in his private office. He ran the words through a translator, then read them again, hoping he had misunderstood. The retribution. He had heard rumors about such a ship. A weapon so terrible that even humans had been afraid to build it. A device capable of ending worlds. His hands began to shake. "What have we done?" he whispered. "What have we awakened?" The shuttle carrying the survivors jumped into hyperspace, leaving Velric Prime behind. In 6 hours, that beautiful world would no longer exist. The judgment was coming. The retribution dropped out of hyperspace at exactly the moment Admiral Unji had promised. It appeared in the darkness between stars like a black sword drawn from its sheath. 3 kilometers of death pointing directly at Velric Prime. Captain Sujin Yu stood on the bridge, watching the enemy homeworld grow larger on the viewscreen. She had not slept in 36 hours. She did not think she would sleep well for the rest of her life. Around her, the bridge crew worked in silence. They were professionals. They had trained for years to operate this ship, but none of them had ever expected to actually use it. The retribution was supposed to be a threat, a warning, a weapon so terrible that no one would ever force humanity to fire it. Today, they would fire it. The Velric defense fleet assembled between the retribution and their homeworld. 200 warships formed a wall of metal and weapons, ready to die protecting their planet. High Blade Torek himself commanded from the flagship, the Conquest. He had demanded this honor. He would be the one to destroy the human superweapon and restore the Empire's pride. "One ship," he said to his officers, laughing. "They send one ship against 200. These humans are even more foolish than I thought." His communication officer interrupted him. "High Blade, the human vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies. They want you to hear something." Torek smiled. "Let them beg. Put it on the main screen." Admiral Unji's face appeared. She looked calm, almost bored. Behind her, Torek could see a vast command center filled with screens and officers. This was not just a ship's bridge, this was a mobile headquarters. Highblade Torek, Unji said, architect of the Aurora massacre. Murderer of 11,553 innocent people. Killer of 2,847 children. Torek's smile faded slightly. You dare to threaten me? Look around you, human. My fleet will tear your precious ship apart. I am not here to threaten you, Unji said. I am here to inform you. 47 days ago, you killed our children. You recorded it. You celebrated it. You believed this would show the galaxy that humanity is weak. You were wrong. Words. Torek spat. Nothing but words. Attack. The Velric fleet surged forward. 200 warships opened fire simultaneously, filling the space around the Retribution with plasma bolts and missiles. Then the rest of the human fleet arrived. 300 human warships dropped out of hyperspace in a perfect sphere around the Velric formation. They had been waiting, hidden in the dark between stars, for exactly this moment. The trap closed like a fist. The battle was brutal but short. Human weapons technology had advanced far beyond what the Velric understood. Ships that should have taken hours to destroy were gone in minutes. Velric shields failed. Velric armor melted. Velric crews died screaming as their vessels broke apart around them. Highblade Torek watched his fleet crumble. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Full retreat, he ordered. All ships, fall back to planetary defense positions, but there was nowhere to retreat to. The human fleet was everywhere. The Velric ships were trapped, burning, dying. On the surface of Velric Prime, billions of citizens watched the battle in the sky. They saw the flashes of exploding ships. They saw the lights of their defenders going dark. One by one. They saw the black shape of the Retribution, moving closer. Unstoppable. Inevitable. High Counselor Merrick stood on a balcony of the council building, watching the end of everything he had known. Beside him, the young guard Keshan stared upward with wide eyes. Counselor, Keshan said, his voice shaking. What is happening? Judgment, Marek answered quietly. Our judgment for what we did to those people on Aurora. But the civilians, the children. We have children too. Marek closed his eyes. Yes, we do. And now we will learn what humans feel when their children are threatened. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Sujin watched the last Velric warship die. The path to the planet was clear. The moment had come. Lieutenant Do-hyun Seo sat at the weapons console. He was 26 years old, the youngest officer on the bridge. His hands hovered over the firing controls, trembling slightly. Captain, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. There are civilians down there. Families. Children. Sujin walked over to stand beside him. She looked down at his hands, then up at the view screen where Velric Prime floated. Beautiful and doomed. I know, she said. I know exactly what is down there. And I will carry this weight for the rest of my life. Every night, I will see this moment. Every morning, I will remember what we are about to do. Then how can we, because they killed our children first. Sujin's voice was steady, but tears ran down her cheeks. Because if we do not answer this with overwhelming force, every species in the galaxy will think humans are safe to attack. Because somewhere, right now, there are children on human colonies who will only be safe if the galaxy learns to fear us. She placed her hand on Do-hyun's shoulder. This is not justice. Justice would be impossible. This is a lesson, and we are the teachers. Do-hyun looked at the firing controls. He thought of his sister, who lived on a colony near the border. He thought of his niece, who was 5 years old and loved to draw pictures of spaceships. He pressed the button. The Genesis lance fired. The weapon was not a beam in the traditional sense. It was focused stellar energy, the heart of a sun compressed into a stream of destruction that nothing in the known universe could withstand. The beam struck Velric Prime at the northern continent. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the planet screamed. The crust cracked. Fault lines that had been stable for millions of years split open in seconds. Magma erupted from wounds that stretched across entire continents. The oceans boiled, sending steam clouds miles into the sky. Cities that had stood for thousands of years vanished in waves of fire. The planet did not explode. It was worse than that. It broke. It came apart slowly, agonizingly. Like a living thing dying in terrible pain, Highblade Torek had survived the battle in space. His damaged flagship drifted near the edge of the system, and he watched his homeworld die on the view screen. His final transmission was not words, it was a scream that lasted until his life support failed. High Counselor Marek had managed to escape to a moon base before the attack. Now he stood at a viewport, watching the world of his birth tear itself apart. Beside him, Kishan wept openly. "Remember this," Marek said, his voice hollow. "Remember what happens when you harm their children. Remember, and make sure our people never forget." The destruction took 3 hours. When it was over, Velric Prime was a field of molten rock and drifting debris. 6 billion Velric had lived on that world. Now there was nothing but fire and silence. Admiral Unji had broadcast the entire event to every species with faster-than-light communication. She wanted them to see. She wanted them to understand. The message was simple. This is what happens when you kill human children. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy learned fear. 1 year had passed since the destruction of Velric Prime. The galaxy was a different place now. Quieter, more careful, more afraid. The Velric Empire had collapsed completely. Without their homeworld, without their leadership, without their pride. The remaining 12 Velric colony worlds had surrendered one by one. Their fleets were gone. Their armies were scattered. Their civilization, which had conquered dozens of species over thousands of years, was reduced to refugees begging for mercy. Humanity gave them mercy. This surprised many people, including many humans. Admiral Yoon Han had become the most famous and most feared human in the galaxy. Alien diplomats trembled when they met her. Children on distant worlds were told stories about the gray-haired woman who had killed a planet. But when the Velric survivors asked for peace, she did not demand their extinction. "We are not monsters," she said during the surrender ceremony. "We do not kill for pleasure or for conquest, but we will become monsters for those we love. Harm our children, and we will end your worlds. Leave us in peace, and we will leave you in peace." This is the only warning the galaxy will ever receive. The Velric remnant was allowed to keep 3 colony worlds. They would be watched. They would be monitored. But they would not be destroyed. Yoonji insisted on this, even when some humans demanded complete annihilation. "If we kill them all, we become what they were," she told the Terran Council. "We become conquerors, not protectors. Our strength must have limits, or it becomes something ugly." High Counselor Marek had become the leader of the Velric remnant by default. Most of the other leaders were dead. He spent his days negotiating with human officials and trying to rebuild some small piece of what his people had lost. At night, he dreamed of fire. The young guard Keshan had survived as well. He had testified at the War Crimes Tribunal, telling the truth about what he had seen in the prison complex on Velric Prime. Some Velric called him a traitor. Others called him the only honorable soldier their species had left. "I guard children now," he told a human journalist who interviewed him. "Human children on the memorial station. They are not afraid of me. They bring me drawings they have made. They ask me questions about my world." He paused, his black eyes distant. "I tell them it was beautiful once. I tell them I hope they never see their world burn." The Aurora Memorial Station had been built at the exact coordinates where the original station had orbited. It was a place of remembrance, a museum of tragedy, a reminder of why the war had been fought. Commander Taeho Park led the memorial ceremony on the 1-year anniversary of the massacre. He stood before a crowd of thousands, survivors, families of the dead, dignitaries from across human space, and read the names of every person who had died. All 11,553 names. It took 9 hours. When he reached the name of Lieutenant Minho Kang, the young idealist who had tried to negotiate, who had believed in peace until the very end, Taeho's voice broke. He had to stop for a moment, breathing deeply, before he could continue. When he reached the name of Hana Choi, he added something that was not on the official list. "And her child, who never got to have a name. Dr. Yuna Bake sat in the front row of the audience, surrounded by the 23 children she had saved. They were older now, marked by their experiences but alive. Some of them had families on Earth now. Some of them had been adopted by people who wanted to give them love after so much pain. Yuna still worked as a xenobiologist. She still studied alien flowers and strange rocks from distant worlds, but sometimes, in quiet moments, she would remember the botanical wing on Aurora, the children hiding among the plants, the sound of screaming in the corridors outside. She would remember her own children, who had not survived. She would cry, alone, and then she would return to her work. Life continued. It had to. On Earth, Ambassador Hyun Shin addressed the newly formed Galactic Council. 47 species had sent representatives to this gathering, more alien contact than humanity had experienced in all of its previous history combined. They had come because they wanted to understand. They had come because they were afraid. Hyun was chosen for this role because she was calm, intelligent, and did not look threatening. She was a diplomat, not a soldier. But behind her gentle words, everyone knew the truth. She spoke for a species that had destroyed a planet to avenge its children. Humanity does not seek war, she told the council. We do not desire conquest. We do not want to rule the galaxy or impose our will on other species. We want to explore, to learn, to grow alongside other civilizations in peace. She paused, letting her words settle. But understand this clearly. We protect our own. Always. Without exception. Without mercy for those who harm us. If your people come to us in friendship, you will find no better allies. If your people come to us with violence, especially violence against our young, you will find no worse enemies. The alien representatives listened in silence. No one argued. No one protested. They had all seen what happened to Velric Prime. They understood. After the ceremony on the memorial station, Commander Tejo stood alone at a viewport, watching the stars. His body had healed from the torture. His mind had not fully recovered and probably never would, but he was alive. He had a purpose. He commanded a fleet now, protecting the same borders that Aurora had once guarded. He thought about the cost of the war, the Velric civilians who had died in fire, the billions of lives ended to avenge thousands. He knew that some alien species whispered that humans were barbarians, savages, monsters wearing the mask of civilization. Maybe they were right. Maybe humanity had become something terrible. But Tejo also thought about the children who had survived. He thought about the colonies that would never be attacked because the galaxy now knew what humans would do in response. He thought about the strange peace that had settled over this region of space, maintained not by treaties but by fear. Was it worth it? He did not know. He suspected he would spend the rest of his life trying to answer that question. Far away, on a small colony world near the edge of human space, a little girl played in a park under an alien sun. She chased butterflies. She laughed at clouds. She did not know about the war, or the massacre, or the burning of Velric Prime. She only knew that she was safe, that her parents loved her, that the universe was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, an alien trader passed a human patrol ship. The trader changed course immediately, giving the human vessel a wide path, sending friendly greetings and promises of peaceful intentions. His co-pilot asked why they were being so careful. The trader pointed at the human ship and said 3 words that had become common across the galaxy. Never wake them. Tejo looked at the stars and thought about what humanity had become. Protectors and destroyers. Angels and demons. The species that would burn worlds to save their children. He whispered to the darkness. We are the monsters who love our children. And the stars, indifferent and eternal, continued to shine.